Hi, everyone. Welcome to Product Breakdown, a weekly podcast where we break down a new product every week. We discuss what's the product, why it is hot, what's its product strategy, and what's next in its future. This week, we have Shubham back in our pod. Shubham, welcome back. How's it going?
Good, man. Just enjoying fall, taking kids out to pumpkin picking, having fun, leaf peeping. That's it. How are you?
Fantastic. I'm good. I'm good. Just getting back from the baby mode and post-COVID mode now. We had COVID, so slowly now getting back to the normal life. Let's talk about something interesting. I've spent a lot of time watching Netflix, and the very exciting news that came up was Netflix has launched now a version of Netflix with ads. I think there's so much to unbox there. Let's talk about that today.
Yeah, sure. I think with the current macroeconomic situation where we are in, it's a perfect time to talk about how to make more money and how to add more revenue streams to your business. So definitely, let's do it.
Let me explain what the product is. So Netflix is a subscription product, which means there are no ads. And for a long time, they have been like that. But recently, they've launched a new product where you can watch the entire Netflix catalog at a much lower rate. The actual price of Netflix subscription without the ads is around $15 to $20 based on what kind of subscription you pick. With the ads, you have a lower or cheaper version of Netflix at $6.99. So much cheaper, but you have to watch ads as you watch the content. So very interesting play. Just a pricing model change with the ads. So Shubham, why suddenly they're moving to this direction when for a long time they have been against it? So why now?
Yeah, that's the $1,000,000 question, isn't it? So I think let me try to break it down for you. If you look at where we are today and where we were when Netflix basically started, or when this like streaming wars, so-called streaming wars, started back in the day, the landscape has changed a lot. And I think there are three key points that I wanted to mention here that'll probably give you a much, much better idea of like how the landscape has changed. So the first, tech in itself has commoditized, right? Netflix used to be a tech company, and now tech is commoditized. And I'll explain what this means in a little bit. Number two, creating content is becoming costlier. Why? We'll talk about it. And number three, the consumer choices or the competition in the market has increased, right? So let's just talk about each one of these three points, and hopefully that will paint a very, very good picture of why we are where we are right now and why it probably makes sense for Netflix to do what they're trying to do today. So if you look at back in the day, I think let's say 2005, 2006, right? We as in the tech world, we were still at the cusp of where new devices were coming out. iPhone was coming out, Android was coming out, right? And so that at that point, Netflix came in as a David, right, into this place which was filled with Goliaths. And what I mean by Goliaths are the big production houses like HBO, Disney, name them, Fox. So these guys were in the game for decades, and in those decades they perfected the art of building and getting access to good talent and creating great, amazing content, right? And so that now suddenly Netflix comes in and says, guess what, you only have, as a production house, you only have two different mediums to stream or get your content to the end user. One was TV, and the other one was the big screen, which is the movie theaters. Netflix comes in and says, guess what? Here's the third one. Here's the third one that is going to be facilitated by our technology, and we will figure out how to make it much, much easier for people to stream. Now, I don't know if you've ever binge watched, Mayank, but I think if you think about it, before these devices existed, before streaming existed, binging was not a thing. You couldn't do it, right? And they created a new kind of a user or consumer they literally created binging, right? And so that's one. Now, what ends up happening is in the last 10 years, tech is not a big deal. You can stand up your own streaming service without having much of an issue, right? And so suddenly it becomes so much easier. The barrier to entry for the industry goes down. Everybody's standing up their own streaming devices.
Why has it become easier? Like, why do you say that it has been commoditized? So you're saying like, okay, it's commoditized, so it's easy for anyone, easier than what Netflix was facing when they were starting. But why has that happened?
Well, a couple of things. Infrastructure, like Wi-Fi, 5G. Look at how easy it is for you to stream your video today versus how difficult it was 10, 12, 15 years ago. So you needed much better technical solutions to be able to stream the same video that you could just easily stream today just because of the infrastructure that is provided. Second, cloud technology like AWS. Look how easy it is for a developer to spin up something and give you access to immense databases of videos, right? And so overall, there's a lot of technical advances that have happened because of which ultimately we ended up coming to a place where technology is commoditized, right?
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah. So that was the one, right? Now, number two, if you look at where content creation is. So content creation was... If you go back a couple of decades, there were only a couple of big production houses which had access to whatever they had access to. But the bigger, in terms of talent, they had access to the whole industry. But they were the channel. They had like primary access to the channels of distribution for content. And so what that did was they had buyer power. They were the ones who would put a lot of pressure on the content creators and keep the prices low because the content creators did not have much choices. So if I was a director, I had to choose or pick between 5 big production houses. Otherwise, I would never see the big screen. That has changed.
So the reason is the content production companies control distribution. Hence, the creators or the artist had no option but just to go with these 5. And because of that, the production houses could control the prices in some form or the other. It was in their control. Okay, I'm with you on that. So what happens on Netflix context? Yeah.
So now what happens is suddenly look at the plethora of streaming OTT platforms, regional OTT platforms. Like if you go to India, you'll have their own Hotstar is there. If you go to Middle East, there are other platforms that have popped up. So if I'm a content creator, I have so many choices. I could even just go to YouTube and start my own channel and people will watch it, right? And so suddenly I don't have that downward pressure on me to keep my prices low. Like I could charge high because I have multiple people who are willing to pay more prices. So there's basically a bidding war if I am a good content creator. And there's an example I'll give you. TVF started as a YouTube channel.
It's in India, right?
It's in India. Right? It's an Indian YouTube channel. And suddenly they became so big that their content is now being bought by multiple different OTT platforms, right? Which is like streaming platforms,
including Netflix and
including Netflix. Yes, and so now those shows were bought, and now suddenly so see the amount of choices, and because of that, the content creators have basically can ask their own prices. So it's getting costlier to build more. The third and the last one is look at the choices consumers have, right? So if you look at the number of content providers or streaming providers, websites, web apps that have popped up just in the last 5 years, it's insane, right? Like, so you have Prime Video, you have Disney Plus, Apple TV, HBO Max, Paramount Plus. Look at how many choices I have. The second part of this also, this argument that you would like to look at is now, because of the commoditization of technology and because of how HBO and Disney realized that they're sitting on all of this amazing content, which is from the past decades that people would still like to watch, they've spun up their own streaming platforms, and they've taken away access from Netflix to those specific properties that people would like watch on Netflix before. So for example, if you were able to watch Friends or Everybody Has Raymond or some old kind of series that people usually love on Netflix might not have access to them anymore because Somebody else just put their own platform up, and now they're saying, yeah, this is my platform. And if you want access to my content, you have to come to my platform.
Interesting. Yeah, I think yeah, the landscape definitely has changed, and also if we fast forward with some numbers now, if you look at Netflix's growth, they were growing at about 30-40% for year quarter over quarter for a long time now, and I think the last couple of quarters it has flattened or rather declining from the previous quarters, about 8 to 10% quarter over quarter user growth. So definitely the competition is very clear in terms of the growth numbers. Also, I think the interesting part I see in terms of why now is another. I mean, yes, the growth is why now. So all the reasons you mentioned is slowing down their growth in this world world of OTT platforms. But if you think about Netflix is also being a very different game as compared to let's say Disney Plus, which is the next biggest platform right now in the market, with about 220 million global users, almost same as Netflix. The interesting part is if you look at Disney as a company or Disney Plus, it's not just one; it's a combination of so many different platforms, which is like Disney's playing a different game. It's not banking on one platform, but looking at different platforms. For instance, Disney owns the Indian local subsidiary that Disney has called the Hotstar, which is now Disney Plus Hotstar. Disney also owns Hulu. Netflix is more of one unified platform, and that's how they're focusing on growth. And Disney is taking a more diversified approach in growing. So they have to find new ways to grow because they don't have these new other bets that they have made and try to offer a different reason for users to come and use their platform. Hence, they have to find new ways to grow.
So I think you're 100% right. I just, from a technical perspective, when you look at strategy, right, like there's a concept of when you make the most money, right? So when you sit in a value chain and you're a monopoly and the people who sell to you, your sellers, they are a perfect competition. So that basically what that does is that keeps the prices that you buy low. Mm-hmm. And then the people you sell to are also perfectly competitive. Basically, they're saying, you are the only person they can buy to, but they have to sell. And so you have much more negotiation power on top of them. That's when you make the most money, right? And I think for Netflix, it's the opposite. On either side of the value chain, they don't have any power to control. Like they can't negotiate with the subscribers, they can't negotiate with the content producers, and so they're stuck in a place where they have to wiggle themselves out. So that being said, I think the question that I'll ask you is, well, what's the product strategy here, like with ads? What are they trying to do? How are they trying to get themselves out of this place that they're in?
Yeah, I think it's not that grim as we are talking about growth slowing and they're still growing at 10%, 8% quarter over quarter. It's pretty solid growth for a company of that size. I'll not talk about ads just yet. I'll just talk about the overall Netflix strategies. Ads just is a small piece of the bigger puzzle. So let me break down what I think is Netflix's growth strategy. See, yes, technology is no more the strategy. It's the commoditized. So I'll not even talk about that. So let me talk about there are 5 things that I think really matters in terms of how Netflix is thinking about their growth strategy. Number 1, content is the king. You mentioned very rightly, you have to acquire new content. You have to have exclusive content. You have to have the largest library in the world of content to bring users. That still is the strategy. Having ads but not focusing on your content will not help you go anywhere. So yes, content is number 1. They still will make more content, will acquire more content. And I think you have some numbers you'll be sharing later on how big Netflix's content spend is compared to other players in the market. That's number 1. Number 2, think about Netflix as it's a global company. It's a global product, right? And international expansion is important for Netflix. They will keep going deep. They have to go deeper in Asia Pacific. India, they are not the number 1 player in India right now. It is Disney Hotstar plus LATAM. That's one of the biggest markets outside the US. So yes, they have to go deeper in regional markets, and they will continue to do that. So that's number 1. Number 2, the international expansion will be one of the core strategies that we're focusing on in terms of user growth. Number 3 is an important one that we did cover in our earlier pods, which was about focusing on new formats. Like as you think about Netflix as a content platform, think of them as an entertainment platform. Think of them as a super app of all entertainment in the world, which means movies and TV shows are just part of it, right? Gaming could be next. Podcasts could be next. Songs could be next. They have not explored all that yet. They're just starting with gaming. So new formats is coming to Netflix. The gains will not happen this quarter. But this ad strategy is more of a short-term, I would say short-term, relatively quicker wins compared to these longer-term bets they would make in terms of new formats. That's number two. Number three. Number four is vertical integration. You mentioned that briefly, right? They are doing that already. They were first a platform where they were buying content and syndicating it through, and showing it to their users through their platform. So they're licensing it from the companies that own it. Then they went on creating the content. That vertical integration will continue. They'll keep pushing hard on the vertical integration. Those are four things that we are looking at. And as we go deeper, they're investing in all of these. And ads is that fifth lever, which they're focusing on. That is changing their pricing model and going deeper in terms of, can we acquire more customers with the exact same offering, but by offering them a lower price? So that's an interesting play. Yeah, go ahead.
It's interesting, right? So I think you painted a much nicer picture than I would think they are in. And so let me just ask you a couple of questions, because I honestly, like, a couple of things that you mentioned, I see them using them as levers, but like, why would I go to Netflix to play games? Why would I go to Net? Right? That's one. Look at the numbers that you were talking about. Like, I'll share the numbers. Netflix and Hulu spent 7.5 times more on winning an Emmy than HBO. That's 7.5 times, right? That's a pretty large chunk. And so if I'm HBO and I can produce things like Game of Thrones on an ongoing basis, why would somebody go to Netflix?
See, these are all great questions. So let me add one more dimension to the mix. When you talk about new content types, I also mean sports. Netflix has not even explored sports yet. And you may argue the same question while somebody comes to play a game or to watch sports on Netflix. Well, the question is not that. The question is, if you have the exclusive rights for, let's take two contexts, US and India for a moment, because we are in both countries from our thinking perspective. If you have IPL going on and Netflix buys the rights for IPL, you have no choice as a user. You will go to Netflix. Period. That's what Hotstar, Disney Plus did in India. Exactly the strategy. Same goes with gaming. If you produce some great gaming content for the users who are already coming to Netflix, and one of them clicks, I'm not saying it'll work out, but there is a chance that they can create those franchise like they have done for other shows on Netflix for gaming. There is a reason to come to Netflix, right? To do that.
I am not challenging that they can't do it. I'm just saying that they're late in the game. Don't you think? Like, Amazon Prime Video just went out with Thursday Night Live football. Netflix still to do it, right? And so I'm not sure what they're waiting for, because ultimately, to me, the market is heating up. And this ad strategy, to me, and again, as I said, like, you painted a much nicer picture, because to me, this is basically going to the point of, this is like a Hail Mary, which they're like, oh, there's a lot of pressure on us to prove to Wall Street, we are also a big player, and this is probably going to help us do that.
Think about it differently. Amazon going into the entire licensing for NFL, they are not focusing on revenue from their Amazon Prime Videos product. You mentioned it last time when we had a chat. It's primarily a story of cross-selling. They want to be relevant. There's no pressure of making more money from Prime Video yet, as how we see from outside, obviously. Not true for Netflix. So every bet Netflix makes has to be well thought. And because content is such an expensive play, you have to think it out really well. So let me play a game quickly about what this can become. The ads product specifically, then I'll come back to the content story about the sports thing. The average revenue for one of the best ads businesses in the world, that is, let's say it's Facebook for a moment, is about $34 is what they have quoted $35 or $40 per user per quarter is what they have seen so far, right? And because of that, and Facebook has such a huge revenue model that they created by offering a free service on top of it, right? Just play the game there. But the point I'm going to make here is it's possible that because of the lower price point, they could unlock a much bigger audience beyond that $200 million mark, which is the scale that Netflix has never seen. And the revenue from ads then is not capped to subscription, but to how much content people are watching on Netflix. So yes, there could be a very interesting mix shift we are looking at 2-3 years from now in terms of the revenue percent of an ads product that Netflix has versus the subscription model. What is relevant today may not be relevant if the ads product works out for them in terms of revenue.
That's a good point. I think I'll take that. I think there is definitely the point that you made that ads revenue is not capped by users. It's more capped by what you watch. And I think, to go back, I was reading how Netflix this quarter decided to stop sharing or stop pointing out their user growth as their primary North Star metric to Wall Street. And possibly that's why they're doing it, because they're saying, well, it doesn't matter how many users I kind of add. It really what matters is how much more often people watch something on my platform. So that's a great point.
Or how much revenue, the average revenue per user, right? The ARPU we talk about per user you make. And that again is capped for a subscription business unless you add more user. But to your point, if you don't talk about the growth, then you want to go deeper into existing base, growth of the user. You want to go deeper into existing base in terms of how much you can extract from them in terms of revenue while providing value. Then the ads model kicks in.
Yeah.
Then you can get the depth in terms of revenue per user. All right, Shubham, awesome. Let's move on. Let's talk about the future now. All right, this is great. So, hey, what's next, man? What's your prediction? What happens next with Netflix?
I think Netflix will have to, ads or no ads, they have to become better at content creation. They have to go after content creation. They have to figure out how to, make not just more content, but more high quality content that sticks. And I think whether it's games or not, or podcasts or whatever it is, I think they are against, headwinds which they have to find newer, better content creators in whichever platform they want to go to.
Interesting. See, from my perspective, I believe there needs to be a change in as I said, there's a binge watcher that watches every sort of, watches everything at every TV show in one go. I think that's a great use case born through Netflix. I agree with you. But Netflix has not embraced the other part of the world, which is, what makes you go back to HBO every week when they release a season like of Game of Thrones? You can't binge watch. You have to go again and again and again. There's a certain level of predicted frequency because of the content that you've created. So has done Apple TV has done the exact same. Apple TV Plus has done the exact same thing. Amazon has the same thing. I think Netflix has to capitalize on the existing non-Netflix behavior and build their product and experiences around that. And this is that non-Netflix behavior. This is that cable TV behavior. This is that, I want to wait for another week behavior. That keeps you top of mind in some pockets, right? It's not like everybody will come every the week. And if you have content and then formats and then different kinds of use cases, that's the direction I would focus on. Initially, the game was get more content, we will win. Initially the game was, to your point, technology, one button streaming, will win. Over. All story. Content is the king. Content still is the king, but it's expensive, to your point. Then comes different types of content. I think sports would be my next prediction coming to Netflix. And the last one is embracing the off-Netflix behavior and bringing them to Netflix will be a game changer.
Well, we'll see, right? We can probably talk about it again next year and
awesome.
And assess our own predictions. So this was great.
Brilliant. Shubham, great chat as always. Thank you so much. We'll catch up soon on the next one. Thank you, everyone, and please share, subscribe to Product Breakdown. I've also shared a link to my strategy Substack, a blog that I run, 2 newsletters every month. It's a free newsletter. Feel free to sign up. And thank you so much. Bye. Until next time.